I did have addictive qualities. I still have those addictive qualities. They now come through not only in my health, but also in my business.
Hey, I'm in a business that I don't really like, that I don't really enjoy. I'm actually trapped by my own business right now.
Hello there, it's me, Steve Mellor, and welcome in to Growth Ready, the podcast that allows high performers to reveal the reality behind what it means to ready yourself for growth, the personal and professional challenges along the growth journey, while also allowing the high performance executive coach in me to satisfy his curiosity toward what drives optimal performance. On this episode, we welcome financial professional and author of Empowered Money, Alan Franks.
We all live two lives, the life we're currently living and that unlived life between. And every now and then we meet what we call a change agent, a person that helps us bridge that gap. And that gap is typically there due to fear and due to resistance.
This is no financial discussion, as Alan helps us understand the defensive and offensive components of our growth and what's possible when we internally recognize we're ready to achieve it. Hey guys, as we get started here with the episode, I want to just take 1 minute of your time to make a request for you to subscribe and rate the show. For our show to be easily discovered by other potential listeners, we need our current listeners, that's you, to take the time to not only subscribe, but to also rate the show. Whether you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, whatever platform of choice, there are typically ways to be rating the show. So go ahead and click something like that 5th star and be sure to take that additional time to leave a comment or two about why it is you enjoy listening to the Growth Ready podcast. Your efforts on this will allow our show to be more discoverable, which means we're going to find more listeners and continue to have that significant impact on the community of human performance and personal development that I know you are all benefiting from by being listeners to this show. Please go ahead, take the time, subscribe, rate the show today. Hey, and while you're at it, why don't you share it with a few people as well? I appreciate you guys. Let's get to the interview. Hello there, and welcome back into the most recent installment of the Growth Ready podcast. I'm very excited to be, as we record this, kicking off the new year. You won't be necessarily the first episode of the new year, but I get to welcome in Alan Franks today, and I'm excited, like I said, just to have this as my first interview in a few weeks, coming off the back of the holiday break, but I know it's going to be a goodie. I'm excited to get into this. But Alan, before we go any further, let me ask you what we ask everybody on this show, and that is, what does it mean to you to be growth ready?
Yeah, well, first of all, Steve, thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to having some fun with you here today. You know, in my mind and in my personal experience, being growth ready, the first thing I think about is The Science of Getting Rich, which is a book, and it's really about manifestation, right? Or anybody ever watched The Secret? I don't believe that our thoughts actually have an effect on things that are outside of us, but I do think they have an effect on us, and I think it gets us ready. So I'm going to make a basketball analogy here. If you're going to catch the ball and then look to shoot, it's too late. You've got to be looking to shoot before you get, and then all of a sudden the ball appears, right? And so when I'm looking about, okay, what does it mean to be growth ready? In my mind, it's about the internal work that we have to do on our minds, on our hearts, on our emotions to get personally ready to grow. Because whether you're a W-2 or whether you're in a sales job or whether you own your own business, the truth is that we're all on a leadership journey here, and our production is never going to outpace our leadership potential in the long run. So it's really about, what do we have to do to get ourselves personally ready to accept that growth when it comes?
Yeah, I like this idea of the acceptance of what is coming our way, with the internal work that we have to do in preparation for that. So we've got both sides immediately of this notion of growth and also the readiness that comes with it. I like where you went in your response initially around this book and the idea of the science of getting rich. And having not read the book myself, I think this might be the first time I'm hearing of it. You immediately associate manifestation and associate the fact that manifestation is more about what it is we're considering internally and not necessarily influencing what it is that's happening around us. So tell me a little bit more, build a little bit more off that initial thought for me.
Don't you? We just dove into the deep end right away.
Oh, buddy, that's the first thing I say to everybody. If anyone ever asks me for a copy, it's like, I don't want to do the surface stuff. Let's go. Here we go. We're going deep
awesome.
now.
Well, I will say this. If I were to back up, I had the awesome opportunity to watch my parents create multi-generational wealth in one generation, come from nothing and create a lot of things. And it wasn't by accident. It was by intentionality. And I grew up on things like Wallace D. Wattles, The Science of Getting Rich, like Think and Grow Rich, like Zig Ziglar. I was very weird and odd in that way that we read Zig Ziglar before we went to bed, right? It was just such an opportunity there. But I do believe, not necessarily in the law of attraction, because that would maybe state that things are getting attracted to us. No, but I do believe that what we think about, we attract ourselves to it, right? Yeah. So if you have this house in mind, if you have this really good business in mind, let's say you're a business owner and you know exactly the way that thing should be operating here, well, it's not like you're going to attract that revenue to you. I think you're going to attract yourself to those revenue opportunities there. And then once again, going back to the basketball analogy, when the shot appears, you're ready to take it. It's really about getting yourself prepared for that opportunity when it arises.
Yeah. And the idea that our thoughts draw us to what we want. Again, I said it right as we started recording here. This is it's January 5th as you and I are speaking. This will go out a few weeks later, but it's that time of the year, right? It's that time of the year where everyone's New Year's resolution, New Year, New Me, etc. Mm-hmm. I for one can't stand it. I've been around this world of high performance for so long now. There's no real truth in it. But here's what I will say: is this idea that our thoughts draw us to what we want. What you are indicating here, brother, is that if we're willing at this time of the year, if you're listening to this in January, February time, and you're still looking at 2026 and saying, hey, let's make it the year that I fill in the blank, whatever it is, like the year that I accomplish this, the year that I reach this, whatever it might be. What I love about what you're bringing to our attention here first is while we may acknowledge this thing that we want to pursue, this thing that we associate with maybe success, you're telling us that while that might be a nice thing to label and put out there into the universe, that's kind of the end of the external component. Once you've identified it, everything from that moment, it goes back inwards and we say, okay, so what am I now going to do in order to start drawing this thing that I've acknowledged that I want closer to me? And so I would love maybe just from your own perspective, Alan, like, how have you seen that transpire in your world? How have you brought things closer to you, I suppose?
Man, I tell you what, so I have, here we are, like you said, January 5th, and I have been battling with this my entire life of, do New Year's resolutions actually even matter? Do goals even matter, right? And the truth is that I think a lot of us, we have too many goals and then none of them ever get hit. Right. Yeah. I, for one, have found that I tend to hit about 80% of my goal. So, okay, well, that means that I need to maybe shoot for 150% of what I really want in order to get to what I want, right? If we're only going to capture 80%. But if you look at everybody who's ever done a damn thing, they don't have goals. They have an obsession, right? They have an obsession to do one thing and one thing only. And so when we put down a weight goal that we have for this year, we're doing that because that's what we think we're supposed to do. When we write goals, I think we're writing them down because if somebody were to go ask us what our goal is, oh, we got these 5 goals around faith, family, fitness, fun, and finances, right? And in one way, it is good to take the time to think about those areas in life. The problem is that in general, most people fall totally flat on their goals there. But the ones that do break through is they break through because it's more of an obsession than it is a goal. It's more of it's a vision that really does compel, that really does attract them towards that, right? So what I will say is this, talking about how this has affected me in my life. when you have an obsession on one thing, we do have to be a little bit concerned that other things in our life might fall through the cracks, right? If we're totally obsessed on growing our business, that's great. But let me tell you something, Matt. If your spouse isn't on board, she's going to own half of it. He or she's going to own half of it in 5 years if you don't pay them attention, right? And so, the problem with setting goals oftentimes is that, okay, we're going to super jacked or we're going to super excited about this fitness goal. Oh, you want to run a marathon? That's great. Well, did you talk to your spouse about how you're going to have to run 6.5 hours on Saturday morning to train for this ultra marathon and how she's going to have to be at home with the kids those hours? Like, you got to get buy-in on this. So, a long story short, I certainly haven't cracked the nugget of, hey, this is how you properly design this. But what I will say is I think less is better here. And once again, talk about the leadership journey. Set a goal that maybe the intention is not to actually hit the goal. Maybe the intention is to inspire you and to cause you to do things differently than you've done in the past. A really good book on there is The Science of Scaling. There says, hey, we want a 10x here in the next 3 years. And if you do that, that's amazing, but it's probably not going to happen. But what it's going to make you do is it's going to make you think a little bit better. So I do think that whatever goal we have, we do need to condense the time frame so that it has a little bit more heightened attention there, or else it just isn't going to move the needle. It's not going to get us excited. It's not going to get our attention. It's not going to get done, right?
Yeah, it's great insights and goals. We could have an entire probably show, never mind episode, about the notion of goals. Are they a good thing? Are they a bad thing? Do they help you? Do they hurt you? All this kind of thing. It's an endless conversation. But what I like about how you've categorized it as an obsession is it immediately indicates the behavior at play, which is that of obsessiveness. You're saying like, hey, if to be obsessed with something, it means that I've now decided this is my thing, this is my area, this is my want that will come before anything and everything else. However, can we do that in a way? And you started to acknowledge a couple of ways that we can maybe get in our own way, whether it becomes our home life, whatever it might be. But are there ways where we can be obsessive and do it healthily? Can we be healthily obsessive? And I'm throwing that question right at you, brother. What comes to mind?
Absolutely. So here's the deal. If you were to look back at all the most successful entrepreneurs, most of them have chaotic childhoods. Most of them have chaotic upbringings. It makes them duly fit to be a business owner because we live in chaos constantly, right? And so somebody who's grown up in a lot of order may not be able to handle a lot of chaos. Well, let's take it one step further. I think if you were to do a study, I think a lot of the most successful business owners would probably have some sort of addiction in their background, right? Probably somebody, if you look at marathoners, they're just recovering addicts who took their addiction from something that was probably unhealthy to something that's very healthy, right? So when we're looking at this, a lot of successful business owners come from chaotic backgrounds. If I had to guess, I don't have studies in front of me, a lot of them have some sort of addiction behavioral issues that are going on there. And I would say this, hey, if you're an addict, you're an addict. At least let's put it towards something good, right? Like the addiction stuff tends not to go away on things, right? So at least they're leaning into it in a good way. And I would also say this, like, I think being obsessed with something is a total gift. I think it's a great gift. I don't think a lot of people ever get to enjoy the idea of being so focused on something that it makes everything else in their life seem so minusculely small, right? So if you're obsessed with something, good for you. I think most people actually struggle with the opposite of, hey, I'm in a business that I don't really like, that I don't really enjoy. I'm actually trapped by my own business right now. And so I think, if you're obsessed with something, of course, that does mean oftentimes maybe health can take a back burner. It's that relationships, and you got to be aware of that, and you got to build guardrails around that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. I think that the true crime is that not enough people are obsessed with what they're doing. Not enough people are in love with what they're doing. Not enough people are really, excited about the vision of where they're heading. And that one's a much tougher nut to swallow there, and nut to crack, I should say.
Yeah. And I love where we're going here, because who would have thought that we can actually have the argument that obsessiveness can be the good thing and that the lack thereof can be the bad thing. And again, it's just it's an opinion, it's a side, and that's what we do on the show. We bring in high performers to share their perspective on what high performance looks like to you. And for me, listening to this, where I really relate to it is I was that high performing athlete. I did have addictive qualities. I still have those addictive qualities. They now come through not only in my health, but also in my business. And these are things that I've learned to embrace, but seasonally try to just elevate my quality of awareness around too, and just say, am I just that little bit more aware of how I bring some of this behavior to the table in the work that I do? If I can be a little bit more aware of how I do that, the ramifications of how I do that, etc., from one season to the next, I like to always think I'm on the winning side of that obsessiveness. But I want to know, I've given you there just a little bit of a hint of what areas in my world I'm obsessed with. Like, Alan, where are you obsessed right now? What are your major obsessions right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been doing financial planning for about 15 years, and I really am obsessed with helping people empower them to live their fullest lives through the proper management of money, right? That's what I do love about what I do, is that a lot of people, when people think about doing their financial planning, they probably think about their budgeting and almost like a restriction diet. Oh, I can't have carbs on this diet. Oh, I can't have fun on this budget, right? Now, the exact opposite's the truth, is that if we can budget properly, then we can reallocate money that we're using for things that we don't enjoy and reallocate those to things that we do enjoy. So when I wrote my book, Empowered Money, the idea is, hey, money is a tool. Let's utilize this tool to live our fullest lives. So that's an obsession that I have, that I've always had, is that I really do think that we all live two lives, the life we're currently living and that unlived life between. And every now and then we meet what we call a change agent, a person that helps us bridge that gap. And that gap is typically there due to fear and due to resistance. By the way, I stole that from Preston Satterfield's The Art of War, on there. That's what I'm obsessed with, is somebody was a change agent early on for me that totally changed my life. How can we be that for more and more people?
Yeah. How can we be change agents for others? It's great that you're putting yourself out there doing this kind of work as that change agent. There's a way that you just referenced what it is you do and how it is you do it there. I would like to explore this idea of utilizing a tool to lead your fullest life. Again, I actually consider myself that tool. When I coach people, I say, okay, in many ways, and I said this to you as I tell every guest before we started recording, like, people tend to hire an executive coach to start having conversations that they otherwise wouldn't be having were it not for them being in the room. And so in that way, I get to play this role of a tool in my world. So I'm curious, just when you think about the way in which folks deal with change, because that's what we're talking about now. We've now shifted from obsession to dealing with change. What are some of the tools that you're potentially seeing are most effective when it comes to not only successfully navigating change, but just simply getting people comfortable with the idea of change? Because I know that's the first hurdle. I know the actual result of the change will come in time, but the comfort of the change.
Totally.
I'm curious, what kind of tools come to mind with that?
Yeah, so I think everybody wants change. Everybody likes change. It's the problem is the transition. It's uncomfortable. It's awkward. It's clunky. Right? Hey, I want to lose 15 pounds in this first quarter. Also, really don't want to give up carbs. I really like carbs. Well, okay. Well, we need to probably give up some of the carbs I've been having over the last couple weeks, right? Over the holiday season, right? So yeah, I want to change. I just don't want to have to go through the transitionary process that's there. Now, at the end of the day, the reason that our jobs are never going to be taken away, at least I don't think, by AI, is that information is cheap. Information's available, right? What I typically charge people thousands of dollars to do, you can go get in my book for $19.99 on Amazon.com right now, right? So that information is being given away. The problem is that nobody's acting on information. As a matter of fact, they're absorbing tons of podcasts and tons of audibles and not doing a damn thing about it, right? What they're really doing is wasting time at that moment in time, right? So all that matters is action. That's all that matters. And so all that matters then is the accountability to do what you say you're going to do. And what that does is that builds personal integrity, right? You say it gets rid of the cognitive dissonance. I want this, but I'm doing that, right? Well, all of a sudden we get rid of that. We start doing what we say we're going to do, not for other people, but for ourselves. That builds our personal integrity right there. And when we do that, we start to get this feeling of unstoppability going on here. And when you feel unstoppable, all of a sudden your eyes are opened up to what you truly can accomplish here on this. And so the tools that we're using, sure, we have technology tools that track people's budget, that helps them know when they're going over budget and where their money's going, right? Yes, we have tools to track their growth progress, because when you're building wealth correctly, it's slow and it's boring. We need to know the progress that you're making. Good book called The Gap versus the Gain here. We need to focus in on that gain right there on that. So yes, we're using technology to show the progress that we are making, and we're tracking that progress here. But at the end of the day, those are just tools. Those are just softwares. If you don't have somebody that's going to be there to hold your hand when you need it, give you a hug when you need it, tell you it's okay when you need it, but also kick you in the butt when you need it, then the tools are going to be futile.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're saying here about, information is cheap, information is available. And the same goes with the tools too. In so many ways, there's an endless supply of tools that can help us see that, 1 + 1 = 2. And so often it's just like that sounds really simple. It sounds really simple, but for whatever reason, as simple as that equation may look, it's not easy. That second one or whatever it is, it just isn't as easy as the first one, right?
And Steve, we're going to have so many more tools coming out with the advent of AI, right? Yeah. There's going to be more and more tools. I want to tell you, if anybody listening here, the last thing you need is another tool. The last thing you need, you have everything you need to accomplish what you want. So my team, we're actually heading up to the mountains tomorrow morning for the next 2 days. We're not bringing laptops here, and we are starting something new this year. We're tracking things manually. We're tracking them by hand, right? I'm not looking for this crazy report that's going to be pulling in all this data that we didn't know. I'm not looking for that. We don't need that, right? We need to be more intentional and more aware of our time and our actions and what we're doing. And so we're going back to the basics. We're tracking by hand.
What do you see the benefit of that being for maybe it's more so for your team than it is for you? Like what are the main benefits for that?
Well, let's take budgeting. Here's a really good example, right? Let's take budgeting, for instance. We have a software that tracks our clients, all their expenses that are going in, and it categorizes them in the right area, makes them aware of where their money's going, where they're going over budget, things of that nature, right? That's great, but it's reactionary. It's looking in the past. Okay. We're going to review that once a quarter, once a month. It's really good for us to say, oh, that's where that went. Right. On the other hand, there are apps out there where you actually put in every single expense that you have, and that's real time. Right. So I would say kind of like almost a MyFitnessPal of what you're eating and the calories that you're putting into your body. I don't know why, but when I use MyFitnessPal, I lose weight. I do, right? Even if I'm not trying, I'm just more aware of it in the moment, in real time. Now, the truth is that's really annoying to track. The good thing about tracking is it's highly effective. The bad thing is it's extremely annoying, right? So when we're putting in that little bit of effort to track, it's just bringing up our awareness on that whatever it is that we're tracking. Inevitably, it's going to get better there. So that's why we're going back to manual tracking. It's just bring up our awareness in real time. So it's not some report that we go, that's interesting. No, it's more something, oh, wow, fell short today. Let's get back after it tomorrow.
It's an engagement versus passive behavior. I love it. You're immediately telling your team, like, hey, listen, at the end of the day, yes, there are multiple versions of software that we could be utilizing right now. It would allow us to have endless meetings where we just passively share data. We passively look over whatever it may be that we're sharing. But for you to start the year with that level of intentionality and engagement to evoke that awareness. I think it's a great step, and it's just a behavioral shift where you need it most, right at the beginning of the year. And before we get off, I love how you use the example of budgeting, because I wanted to come back to that anyway, because you reference budgeting as more of as a task of restriction more than it is anything else. And why is it important for us to look at something like, and the reason I even ask this, Alan, this is not a financial podcast. We don't need to necessarily learn about how to budget, etc. But for me, so much of it comes around back to this notion of high performance when we think of, if I were to focus on a set of skills, a set of behaviors that I know are best for me, I see that as a version of budgeting as well. So I would love for you just to kind of walk us through this notion of, why is budgeting more of a restrictive exercise?
Totally. And so when we're looking at budgeting, it's important to know that there's two ways that budgeting is very much a defensive thing. Okay. All right. So if we think of defense and offense here, the offense would be, how do we make more money? And the truth is that we want to be focused in on how to make more money 90% of the time. Right. But if we're bringing in water here and there's a hole here, we're going to get burned out, because we're going to be on this treadmill of life here, and money's coming in, money's coming out, and we're exhausted. We haven't kept anything. Right. So if there's holes in our bucket, we got to clog them before we put in more money. So whenever we're working with somebody, we like to start off with the budget. And I just want to warn you, today's very expensive. This world today is extremely expensive, the most expensive that the world's ever been, by a long shot here. And the change of inflation over the last 5 years has been so drastic and so quick that a lot of families are having trouble keeping up. All right. So that's my way of saying, I don't think budgeting is an option anymore. I think it's a necessity. Okay. And then number two, what's going to be a little demoralizing is you're going to look at your budget and you're going to say, well, Alan, what am I supposed to give up? Right. I've got to feed my family. My food budget went from $2,000 to $4,000, and I'm still buying the same chicken that I was from the grocery store. Right. This is real stuff that's happening. Yeah. My mortgage escrow went from $3,000 to $4,500, and I live in the same damn house. Right. But my taxes went up. My home insurance went up. Right. So all of a sudden we're living in this world of inflation where budgeting is it's not an option anymore. This is a necessity here. Now, I want to follow that up with saying, hey, you're going to find it's going to be very hard to lower that overall budget. It's going to be very tough to do that, right? So even though I want us to keep an eye on that budget, and I want us to know where our money is going here, I also want us to come with the perspective that, hey, you could work your tail off to really budget well and save an extra $500 that month. Or we can try to go get another job or another promotion or another client or another sale and go make $1,500 more a month, right? So we do need to make certain that we're patching up all the leaks. But on the other hand, I really do want to patch up the leaks so that we can focus more on the offensive side, which is bringing in that. Now, let's go back to what you just said. A lot of people don't budget because it's hard work and it's restrictive. Okay. Oh, if we budget, we can't do that. No. That's not what we're saying. As a matter of fact, what we're saying is, hey, if you're putting X amount of dollars towards something, I want to make certain that you're getting X amount of yields of happiness from that. Now, yields of happiness is very subjective to whoever is spending the money here, right? But I want to tell you that if you go out to eat twice a month, one with friends and one on a date night, okay, you're going to get more enjoyment out of that than if you were to go out twice a week, every single week for dinner. Okay. Why? There's law of diminishing marginal utility that goes in here. If you're a fat kid in a candy shop here and you can have whatever you want, you're not going to get as much enjoyment as if somebody goes in and says, okay, you can pick out 2 pieces of candy, right? You're going to enjoy the hell out of those 2 pieces of candy because you gave yourself some limitations on there, right? So what we're trying to do when we are looking at the allocation of your dollars is we are trying to take money away from things that you aren't getting as much enjoyment and allocate it towards things that you are getting enjoyment out of, right? Yeah. Now, at the same time, we've got to balance this other thing called life. I want to make certain that you're enjoying life right now. Life's too short not to enjoy it. We never know when it's going to end. We have to enjoy life right now. That's a non-negotiable. But I also want to make certain that we're thinking about our life in the future as well. And we're putting away a certain amount of money each month so that we can really enjoy life in the future as well there. And there's a balancing act right there. And what we like to do is we like to automatically set up the money that we're saving in the future and then spend what's left. And what we found when we do that is that when we automatically set money for the future, we don't realize we're doing it. We get used to living within the rest of the money. And now we have free reign to go spend whatever the hell's left. And we don't have to feel guilty about it because we've already taken care of our future self. So as we're working on a budget, yes, we do want to track expenses. Yes, we do want to look back and make certain that we're not, paying $9 for some subscription that we haven't used in 3 years, which we all sometimes have happen, right? That happens. But realistically, we want to set up automatically, take the human nature out of this thing, and then allow you to spend whatever's left in a guilt-free way.
There's a formula, man. There's a formula that you're speaking to here. What I like about it is it's something that's very relatable. Like I was saying, as I asked the question, is that, again, this isn't a financial podcast, and this doesn't even need to be a financial discussion. At the end of the day, the practice of budgeting, which can feel as though it's a restrictive exercise at first, what you just were able to explain there is this idea that restrictive behavior can actually be this catalyst for joy. If we look at it as like, what do I remove? How do I simplify this thing? How do I make these potential investments that I make quite often less often, so that when I'm making them, they are things that I truly start to appreciate and just know that time is coming. Like I've actually set aside a special occasion, a special moment for the spending of this money. But I see it no different to the way in which, let's say, for instance, myself, when I dedicate time to doing things with my family. Like again, it would be wonderful if every single day I was just completely available to be this 24/7 dad, but the world that I've created and creating for my family means that I have to say no to some family responsibilities at times, which makes the ones that I then say yes to all the more meaningful, all the more purposeful. And I can't help but just sort of see how this very approach to the concept of budgeting in the financial world has this just residual effect across all areas potentially of life.
Totally, 100%. Steve, when we meet people, there's two extremes here. One's the person that spends every single dollar they make. I'll be honest with you, it's really hard for us to help them. It's really hard because there's years and years and years of bad hardwiring that we would have to undo. It's not that we're not willing to. It's just that typically I don't like to babysit, right? I will hold hands, but I don't like to babysit, right? A lot of the times, though, we're working with people that have been squirreling away money and not giving themselves permission to have fun, right? That's a lot of the times we're working with really good savers that haven't been giving themselves permission to spend money, right? And so if you are that person, your financial advisor is not helping you spend your money, then they're not doing a good job of financial planning, because financial planning, once again, the purpose of it is to allow you to spend more money, both now and in the future, in a way that you do not have guilt and that you can fully enjoy it and be present, right? Listen, we've all been, I think most people listening to this at some point in time have had a cash crunch, right? Maybe not been broke, but had a cash crunch, right? And they still had a vacation that they planned when they weren't in a cash crunch, right? And next thing you know, you're in California and you're not enjoying yourself as much because we have a cash crunch going on. And then we've been somewhere where we're flush on cash, and man, that feels a lot better right there, right? So it's helping balancing that here and putting you in a position where you can be present and fully appreciate whatever the heck it is you're spending money on.
Yeah. No, it's great stuff, and I now want to go back to and revisit something you mentioned earlier, this personal integrity, and how when we start to implement it, there's this unstoppability that can come from the practicing of it. It resonates with me greatly, this idea of personal integrity. It is something that comes up a lot in my world. I'm curious as though for you, Alan, when you think about personal integrity right now? Like, again, this is a pretty direct, and as you alluded to at the beginning, like a deep question for me to ask you, but how would you rate your own personal integrity currently? Like, what does personal integrity look like for you? How are you doing when it comes to being, someone who's practicing it?
Steve, that's such a good question. And the number that comes out from my mind currently is a 6, because we're coming off the holidays.
Sure.
And here we are on the 5th of January. In my dry January, I don't know what's gone on this year, but I feel like I've had a beer every single day in January so far, right? I'm going on a team retreat tomorrow, right? So it's kind of like, all right, next Monday, we're getting serious about this, right? So I would say right now it's a 6. Did I get my workout in last night? Yes, I did. Did I get my walk in this morning? I did, right? So, there are some things, but to me, a personal integrity, for me, it always starts with my health, okay? Because I can outsource a lot of things. And I've got my business to a point where money's going to come in every single month, and I don't have to worry too much about it. Obviously, we want to build on that, right? But, that's going to happen. But my health is the one thing I cannot outsource, right? And I see how much fun my parents are having with my kids, their grandchildren, and I want to make certain that I'm alive as long as I possibly can be to enjoy as much of what they're experiencing right now, right? So when I'm ranking my personal integrity, it actually has very little to do with my business. Has almost everything to do with my health, right? So when I'm looking at this, I've got to just transparently, I'm looking to lose 15 pounds in the next 90 days, right? Now,
awesome.
To be clear, once again, I'm starting next Monday because we've got some things going on. My brother's birthday, right? So, so I've got a 90-day sprint, because the truth is, if I set incremental goals here and I'm not all in, I won't hit any of them, right? I've got to have a big goal and I've got to have a time crunch on there. But what's cool about this, Steve, is I've found in my life, whenever I have a huge fitness or health goal that I'm going after, that everything else in my life tends to get better. I'm happier. My relationships are better. I do better at work because I'm dealing with people's personal money. And there's a lot of mental barriers and mental head noise that I have to deal with on a daily basis here. And if I'm willing to break through barriers on the physical side, it tends to help me on the mental side and work. So what I found is when I do a really big health crunch, then my personal integrity goes up and it helps me in my work life, right? So right now, judging off of the last 3 weeks, which I've basically been taking off here, it's 6. But I would say here, in the next couple of weeks, I think that there's going to be a really good opportunity to get that up closer to an 8 or 9 and eventually, hopefully, at some point at 10. But it's hard to sustain those levels.
It is. And it was... For me, I love asking a question like that. Again, it's the coach in me whenever someone says something like you have a term like personal integrity, I hear it and I just go, I wonder where he would grade himself right now. And I love that you immediately have this sort of scale of 1 to 10. But the better question, without a doubt, is like, what is it that makes up your personal integrity? And you went there with the response, this idea of health, making it about health. But something you said there, Alan, which I really want people to hear, and it brings everything we've discussed full circle, is that you have an obsession right now, which is that in your health. Your obsession is your health, and you've made that by making that your obsession, it allows you to say, okay, if I focus squarely on this, then everything else around this should fall into place. And it is, and it will as you go through this next 90 days. I have no doubt in my mind, whether you hit 15 pounds, 14 pounds, 18 pounds, whatever it is, the knock-on effect of obsessing about this one item, this one area in your life, is that everything else around it will undoubtedly benefit from it. And there's a simplicity in that. And dare I say it, there's actually an ease in that too. We use this term all the time on this show and in my world. Is like, it's simple, but it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. But I push back on that when it comes to something like this. I think when you do focus in on one thing, it is in fact easy, as long as you don't allow yourself to start looking and measuring all these other areas through the same vein as well, because that's not what we're saying right now. We're saying something slightly different, putting that one focus right there at the middle and making that single focus the obsession.
Yeah, yeah. I tell you what's hard is to have multiple focuses. That's what's hard.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why a lot of times I think when you look at, hey, I've got goals for family, fitness, finances, fun, etc., you never hit any of them. Right. It's good to know that, hey, here's where we're striving in those areas. Right. But going back to Gary Keller's The One Thing, great book here, which I mean, it's a great book, but it could be summed up with what this conversation is, right? And then even going back to a great movie called City Slickers, where this guy named Curly talked about one thing that you've got to find in your life, right? We all have that one thing. And I do want to take just a second to emphasize, I do think that financial planning can very much so be a one thing, not the one thing maybe, but a one thing that does make everything else in your life a heck of a lot better, right? Makes your vacations better, makes your the food that you're able to put on the table healthier, the roof you're able to put on your over the head maybe a little bit better, right? If we can get that one area of your life, it does affect almost every other area of your life right there. So I do think that it sounds, yeah, that sounds ridiculous to be able to have multiple one things, but let's just call them priorities here. Your health is a priority that you cannot outsource. Luckily, your financial planning is a priority that you can.
Yeah. No, and there's always there's going to be a seasonal discussion to all of these kind of things, and there's no doubt this 90-day window is a season of health for you. It doesn't mean that you're going to disregard health at the back end of it, but for whatever reason, you may shift into something that is now your one thing. But I really do appreciate that idea that, hey, at the end of the day, whether it be health, whether it be your finances, whatever it may be, spirituality, etc., when you put that one thing at the center, if we trust the efforts and the intention around that one thing, other things around it can potentially fall into place. But Alan, listen, as we start to close out here, one area I do want to touch on before we're done is the leadership journey. You've referenced it a couple times as we've gone through the conversation. You've talked about being a leader and the importance of being a leader. And obviously you have your own company, you lead your own team. I do the same thing, but not everyone listens to this show does. How are they leaders, or what is it that we can learn from you right now in terms of the power of leadership, whether you are in a position of leadership, so to speak, or not?
Yeah, so I'll just share with you a little bit of my journey. I want to steal from a Kevin Hart documentary where I was watching, and he said, hey, as a comedian, I feel like I'm a 10 out of 10. As a business owner, I feel like I'm a 2 out of 10. And that just hit me really hard. I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm one of the best financial planners that's out there. But man, we got systems, we got process, we got team, and I feel like it's just going everywhere and not congruent at all, not heading in the right direction. So over the last couple of years, I took a leadership journey of myself and saying, hey, we've got to run a better business. Now, people listening to this may not be business owners, but they may probably within whatever job they have, they own something. They own some systems, they own some processes, right? So what I did is I did a self-taught course. Basically, I went out, I bought the best business books that were out there. Whenever somebody recommended a book, I would take it, I would devour it, and I'd implement things immediately from there. And over the last couple of years, we went from having a 2 out of 10 as a business owner to probably closer to 7 or an 8 out of 10 on that scale as a business owner, right? I'll only get to 10 when I can take 2 months off in Italy and not come back to a dumpster fire, but we're not there yet, right? That's obviously the goal of every business owner, I think, right? But what I realized in this journey is that if you think of a Venn diagram of you personally, the top circle is you personally, then when another bottom circle is you financially, and the other bottom circle would be your business if you're a business owner, right? They all three overlap right there in the center. And what I would tell you is that no one circle is going to be able to outperform the other circle over the long term. And what I mean by that is, all right, if we're running a business, but our leadership is not growing, we're not growing as people, we are going to get capped. Maybe our business can outperform our leadership potential a little bit, or for a short time, but not over the long haul. If our personal finances are struggling, it eventually will limit the growth of the business. If the business is struggling, it will limit your personal finances, right? all three of these things are very much intertwined, and they meet right in the center of this place called life right here. So what I've found is via reading, via listening to podcasts like this, but via implementing and taking those actions here and having a playfulness about this. Because I think we are stuck right now in this I think we're stuck in a dangerous world where we have, what we call rise and grind community here. And then we now have this evolution of soft life. I don't know if you've heard about this. This is Gen Z doing soft life, which is basically a revolt of the rise and grind. And here we are. Okay, we have a hard ass approach over here and a soft ass approach over here. And I want to tell you, neither of those are the answer, man. I've taken the hard ass approach. It's very hard to do long term, right? I think that there's got to be a middle ground of playfulness and fun that we can have as we're going after these goals. And I was watching this Simon Sinek video the other day talking about the difference between the top 5 tennis players and the top 25 tennis players. They all have really good diets. They all have great workout routines, elite coaching. They said that the top of the top tennis players, though, when they make a shot, they say, hey, that was fun. Let's try that again. But when they miss a shot, they go, well, that didn't work. Let's try something new next time. And where I feel like a lot of high achievers, it hurt themselves is that they get onto themselves when they miss the shot. And then when they make the shot, they're like, well, that's the way it's supposed to be, right? And they don't pat themselves on the back. They don't take a second to congratulate themselves on what they accomplished. They're like, well, that's how it should be, right? And when they miss, they're really hard on themselves. And then that hurts the next shot that they're going to take, right? And so what I'm trying to enter into my world in this 2026 is just a little bit more playfulness, a little bit more fun, a little bit more of saying, man, why are we doing all this stuff? Does it have to be such a rise and grind mentality, or can we make a game out of this and start having a lot of fun with it as well?
It's really important to hear what you're saying here. Again, I'm all too familiar with it with my background in sport. And I'm certainly all too familiar with it today, working with executives, is sometimes we fall into the habit of just trying to get the win. And once we get the win, we move on to the next. In this tennis metaphor, for example, we move straight on to the next point. We move straight on to the next game, whatever it might be. We don't acknowledge the fun in that particular victory. And if there is a miss along the way, we don't simply acknowledge that that's just the most recent rep that didn't go the way we wanted it to go. And that is such an important psyche to have as you navigate not only 2026, but as you go forward in life. Like, can you look at your life through this playful lens and just say, listen, this is going to be a game of wins and losses, lessons and failures, all the kind of stuff in between. At the end of the day, can I simply pick my head up every single time, see the benefit of the situation, and just find a way to take that next step in whatever direction it may be towards whatever it is that you want. And man, I'm listening to everything that you've said here, Alan, and to think that through the course of this conversation, we've gone from the need for us to be obsessive to work through some of these areas where we actually put restrictions on ourselves, and for the result of this approach to potentially then be playfulness. Can we find the play? Can we find the fun? And what I love about all of this is it pushes against some of the more common messaging out there, which is what we're all about on this show. So anyone who came into this thinking that obsessiveness is bad and restrictions suck and that playfulness just isn't possible if we really want to win in life, well, Alan's just told you that you're wrong. Alan's just told you that there's another way to look at it. And I'm here for it, brother. I'm here for it. I think it's a great perspective that you've brought to us today, and I'm thankful that you're able to do it, and especially that you're able to find a way to do it through this lens of something as serious as finances. You know, at the end of the day, finances are a very serious, very significant part of our life. And I'm hearing that there might even be a world even there where we can find a playfulness in that, and that we can find a fun in that. And I want to just pass it over to you now to have the final words, to have the final thoughts on this whole discussion, and also just leave us with any information that we need to know just to learn more about you too, brother.
Well, Steve, first of all, thanks for having me on here. Would love to come back in the future, maybe dive deeper into a certain topic here, but I love what you're doing. You're getting people to think differently, right? You're getting people to take a step back, take a deep breath, take a minute to think, and maybe look at this just a little bit different. Because the truth is, anybody listening to these podcasts, we're all searching for something, whether it's just a leg up or a little bit of an edge, right? And so, or maybe we may not be broke financially, but maybe we're broke emotionally or energy wise, right? There's so many ways that we can be broke, not just financially, right? So hopefully somewhere in this podcast, somebody's going to think about something in their life a little bit differently to help them in that next step there. But what I would say, I'm here to help. I love to give. I'm addicted to giving. I really am. I love adding value. Here, I do want to I want to give two giveaways here on this. Number one, my book is empowered-money.com. That's our website, empowered-money.com. We have Audible coming out here pretty soon here, but right now it's a hardcover or an ebook. But on there, if you were to go there, there's actually a software we have where you can get a free financial plan. It takes about 10 minutes, and it's so important. You know, we talk about tracking. It's so important to track your progress on your finances too. So it gives you an idea of where you are. You know, so society politely tells us where we should be, like fitness wise and weight wise, right? Nobody ever tells you where you should be financially wise. So it shows you where you are on that path. So that's empowered-money.com. If you're a business owner, it's extremely important to know the value of your business. And that way you can track the value of the growth of that business over time. So we did start a business called the Business Planning Institute. And the website is just that, thebusinessplanninginstitute.com. It's long, but it's spelled exactly as it sounds. If you go there, you can actually use our software that we have right there. Fill out that form. We'll get you a free valuation of your company, show you what it's worth, show you what it could be worth. And obviously, we would love to help you bridge that gap from the life you're living to that unlived life within.
It's great stuff. Alan, I cannot thank you enough for the time, the generosity of the insights, and of course, even those couple of freebies there for folks listening as well. All that information, I'll make sure our producer gets that put up on the show notes. But otherwise, Alan, wishing you well for 2026, for a successful team retreat that you've got coming up this week, etc. And of course, with the next 90 days of putting your health right smack center in your world. So, brother, thanks again for the time. All the best.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Thank you for tuning in to Growth Ready. If you liked what you heard and are feeling ready to grow, be sure to leave a 5-star rating, subscribe to the show, and share the episode with someone you know is ready to fuel their growth journey today. We love our community, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at podcast@growthready.com. And until next time, we are Growth Ready, and you will be too.